Hello. Welcome to Bear Chats, episode number 3. Talking all things mindfulness, mental health, spiritual wellbeing. Hosted by myself, Matt Hillier, aka the Humble Bear. It always makes me laugh saying humble. Is it humble to say you're humble? I don't know. But just really excited today to have the amazing Amy Mercado with us, talking all things about her journey, and then going into what she offers and the amazingness and epicness that she is. She's fantastic, and it's a great opportunity for me to get to know her. We did a podcast together, but it was kind of like on me, and now we're looking at what in Amy's journey, and how where she's got to, and how she's got there. And so before we start, I actually normally do this offline before you guys tune in with people who I'm interviewing. But I thought it'd be really nice for everyone to join in. A really short meditation and consecration of this session to really help people drop into the space and drop into this interview. So if everyone would like to join me, that'd be great. If you don't, that's great as well. I just invite you just to close your eyes and just bring your awareness to the breath. Just feeling the breath as it comes in and out of the nose, not doing anything with it, and just relaxing into the breath. Just feeling the breath slightly cooler on the way in, and slightly warmer on the way out. And then just following the breath up the nose to the center of the forehead, the space between the eyebrows, just lightly resting the awareness on the space between the eyebrows. Just feeling any slight sensations, any tingling. And then following the breath down the throat, into the center of the chest, to the spiritual heart. Just resting the awareness in the center of the chest. Just feeling any expansion, any sensations in the heart area. Just connecting our hearts, connecting our souls in this moment. Wherever we may be. And then we just want to offer up any energies created, any lessons, any aha moments, everything in this interview, in this moment, up to a higher power, whatever you choose to call that, the universe, source, God. Just offering it up for the benefit of myself, of Amy, of all our listeners or watchers, of all sentient beings, whatever they may be, in this known universe or any other. Just feeling that connection, feeling those energies, grounding into the body. Just setting the intention for all those watching or listening, just to get wherever it is they need, to be able to hear the information they need, to be able to understand what it is they need perfectly for where they are in this moment, where they are on their journey. Just feeling that expansive energy as it flows in. And when we're ready, just giving your fingers, toes a little wiggle. Just bringing ourselves back into the body and back into the space. And awesome. That felt good.
Amazing.
Very energetic. So as I said, joining me today, Amy Mercado. Thank you, Amy, so much for joining me. We're really looking forward to this interview. We were going to do it the other day, but it didn't pan out. But it feels perfect today, actually. So yeah, really just welcome, and yeah, let's get into your journey, get into who you are, how you got here. Just your story, and not that it's makes you who you are, but just those experiences. I really like to share with my listeners and my audience around that normality, and because sometimes I know when I started my journey, I'd see people and I'd be like, oh yeah, they were born a yoga teacher, they were born spiritual. It's like no, most people I know weren't, and so it's really important to get that resonance, that I can't think of the word for it now, but to be able to relate to people, so that you can see, oh, actually I was there like 5 years ago and now I'm here. So yeah, this is completely unedited, completely unscripted. So yeah, hi.
So, God, it's such when I look back on it now, the journey has been a bit mad. I guess for me, the best way to sort of look at it is before the lockdown, like what I was doing to what sort of shifted. And just to give you an idea, I used to be a workaholic. I grew up with an eating disorder. I was bulimic from probably started to question my weight around the age of 8 or 9. Became vegetarian, vegan pretty much from that age as well, which was very stressful for my mum. And by the time I was 15, I was in like a full-blown like eating disorder. I was laxative abusing. I was taking diuretics to keep my weight down. I joined the gym at 14 so I could train. I'd then tried to do the whole studying thing. I was really good at short-term information. Felt really guilty that I wasn't going to uni, so I tried that for a few months. Was doing forensic science. And after a few months, my weight got really out of control. I was very, very underweight to the point of my mum was like, this is enough now, but not quite addressing what was going on. Got a job in an office, was still training loads at the gym, and this lady who I'd known pretty much my whole life, she was my body pump instructor, and she's like, hey, you're in the gym so much, like why don't you become an instructor? And I was like, oh, that's not really a career. And she laughed and she went, I make £25 an hour teaching these classes. And I was like, wow. So at 19, that sounded like a shitload of money, So I went home that night, went online, bought, so I've always been really good at, I've had a job since I was 13 as well. So I've always worked. And by the time I was 19, I was pretty much like working 3 jobs at this point. So I had a bit of money and savings and booked onto this course with all the glitz and the glam, and did this aerobics instructor course and did that over the year while I was working in an office at this point as well. So I was sort of working in the office, really bored at my job, but everyone looked like I was also really good at what I did as well. So I'd get my job done within an hour and then I'd have all this time to do all this coursework and stuff. And then even though I'd sort of dropped out of uni, like my weight was then starting to go up because the laxatives that I was using, it was a resistance to the body. So one laxative a day used to be like all right, and it got to the point where like 20 a day weren't even working or touching the sides, and my weight was like, to me, going up ridiculously. I'd gone up from 6.5 stone to like 8 stone, and I'm freaking out and I'm like, oh my god, I'm going to be 9 stone soon. And it was just going up and up. And then I won a trip to St. Lucia for exceptional performance in the office, even though I didn't really feel like I was doing much. And that's kind of what tipped me over the edge. I didn't feel like my body was good enough or ready to go on this trip, and had some stuff going on with my family life as well that I won't divulge because it's my business to share. But that kind of really combined with that and just being so unhappy in myself. And on the outside, I was this really confident person, and I was starting to kind of do the aerobics teachings. I'd been learning to do that as well. So I had this whole facade. And then came home one night and just decided I couldn't do it anymore. Like, I'd had enough. I was tired of being obsessed with my weight. I was tired of being obsessed with everything I put in my mouth. I was tired of training. I was tired of myself. I was bored of myself. And I just said, that's it, I'm done. So I decided to check out that night. My dad found me the next day because I was living with him at this point. And he kind of recognised what had happened. I took like a lot of his like painkillers and stuff like that, mixed it with a load of alcohol, slept on it I think about 8 or 9 hours, and then when the ambulance came, they was like, we need to take you to the hospital. You can't have your stomach pumped because you've slept on this, so if we don't do anything and intervene, you're going to die in 2 weeks and your organs will go into failure. But by that point I didn't really give a shit. And so it was sort of like left to them to deal with. And when I came home after like 2 weeks, I was sent to live with my godparents because my parents didn't quite know like how to handle me, and I didn't really know how to handle me. And that's, now I look back, kind of where the journey did kind of begin for me, because my godmother was she was into affirmations, and she would get me to like write down how I felt about myself, and got me, I used to journal when I was a kid, but really sort of connecting to myself. And she was like, you need to do your personal training course. And I was like, I don't want to do it. And she was like, and work was so amazing that they paid me full pay because they didn't want to lose me as well. So I'm getting this full-time salary coming in whilst living with my family. And so she got me to sign up to this PT course. And she was like, you need to know why you need to eat and how your body uses it. So it's no good going to the gym all the time and burning yourself out and not replenishing yourself. So spent like the 6 months doing this course. And in the meantime, she weaned me off my laxatives. She used to get me to sit. So one thing I would never do is sit and eat in front of people. Like, that would be an absolute freak out for me. So it was like crying at breakfast, crying at lunchtimes, and sort of getting her. But then we'd go and train for like 3 hours in the gym together. So she was sort of showing me that it wasn't the right way maybe to deal with it now I look back on it, but it was almost like she was trying to get me to balance it better. She taught me like how to like cook in bulk, for example, and then you could take what you wanted. And over time, like, I started to enjoy sitting down and eating meals. And over that period, I did go a bit reckless afterwards, though, if I'm totally honest. Cocaine came on the scene, got introduced to MDMA, pills, and I think because I felt like I'd defied God, like, I didn't really care. So I was very reckless. I was doing stupid things at the time as well, but I didn't give a shit. It was like all my dirty secrets were kind of out there and everyone kind of knew about it. I shed a lot of old friends, and I look back on it now and I felt like they rejected me, but actually I think that was a story that I'd created at the time as well, because they was going through like a lot of suffering. I sort of pulled away from my mum even more because I felt like she was angry at me, which I found out the other day was actually a story that I've created for years. So it sort of healed that, which blew my mind. And then slowly I moved into working into a gym and became like a studio and events manager for a company. And I met a partner at the time, and he'd gone through anorexia, and it sort of bonded us together. And he really got me. Like, he taught me how to meal prep like more properly. But he was like, if you want to really shred up, you've got to start eating meat. And I was like, oh, I can't do that. And it was like breaking these paradigms. And so he really helped a lot. And he taught me how to cook. Because growing up, we didn't really have that stability when my parents split up. So my mum would have food in the house. I think that was the issue. There was always so much food. Like, we had a cupboard just dedicated to chocolate, so you could binge on that uncontrollably. That's why I moved in with my dad at one point, because he never ate, because he had a cocaine habit. So there was never food in the house. So it was either one extreme with one parent or the other. So doing that, it sort of allowed me to sort of, I guess, he taught me how to sort of really connect with food. And he said, you've still got a sugar addiction, because I was binging on fruit all the time. I'd replace the chocolate addiction with fruit. And that really highlighted to me. I was eating like 4 apples a day, satsumas, melon, and then still prepping because I'm still craving that sugar. He taught me a lot about like different chemicals in food, and he showed me a different way of training. So over the years I started to evolve, but I was still heavily into this. I was working like 7 days a week, 6 days a week. I was teaching loads of aerobics classes at this point, and I was PTing, and I was just working to that point of burnout. But I felt like I had to do that because I wanted a house. I wanted to have something that was mine. I was obsessed with having a home, because growing up, like, we almost lost our home, and like finances are always an issue. So I was like, I have to work really, really hard. And I had a side business as well. So I'd run this vegan protein business. So I'm juggling this. And then lockdown came, and me and my partner had split up at this point, and I'd gone through other relationships. I didn't know how to handle emotions, because I was on antidepressants since I was 16 and anxiety tablets since I was about 26. So they would always keep my emotions quite suppressed. So when a lockdown happened and they said the gyms were shutting, and I didn't actually know who the fuck I was without a gym, and that was my identity, and I felt like I needed it to survive, I literally had a complete meltdown. My brother had moved to Valencia overnight because he had a baby on the way out there. So he was like, Aim, the borders are shutting. You better sort your shit out and get online or something, because it's going to be a long time. And this was in February of I think it was 2020.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, I don't do computers. So I'm really good at like little Instagram videos. And I was like, no. And he was like, Aim, this is going to be long, like sort your shit out. So I started teaching online, collected this random following, because I couldn't get Zoom to work the first time I did it. Everything kind of fell apart, and I had to go on Insta Live, which I'd never done before, and it was horrendous. I had no makeup on, my hair, and I always used to always wear makeup, teaching makeup, hair would always, so I'd always look very presentable. So all of a sudden I had to do this Instagram Live thing, open myself up to the world and be like, shit, this is it. This is raw, unedited, and let go of this perfectionism that I had. Scooped up a load of people from there, including a load of pole dancers and stuff. Like, it's just been bizarre, the journey. And life just became amazing. Like, I started teaching like 1 hour a day rather than working 13, 14 hours. I was like, I'm working smarter, not harder. And then I was just loving life, and I felt guilty that I was having such a great time. So I was scared of telling people I was having a good time, but those that could see, I guess. And everyone was like going through their own stuff, and I was just loving it. And then the lockdown started to come to an end in that first September, and I started freaking out. I was going to have to go back to this old way, and I used to drive like 3 hours a day to work and stuff as well. Like, I think I put 30 quid petrol in like 3 months or something crazy when I started teaching online, because I live in this village. And then I started freaking out. My anxiety came back, like it came back so hard. I was going through a heartbreak situation as well, and I generally felt like my heart was going to fall out of my body. Like, the pain, I'd never felt anything like it, like anything. And I felt like my heart had its own mind. I now know that the heart does have brain cells in it and all these things, but I was like, what's going on? This object in my body is, and so now I'm smoking weed to sleep, it's not working. I'm taking diazepam to sleep, it's not working. And my anxiety meds are not working. And I was like, I'm going to check out. Fuck this. This is too painful. And I felt like I was going to get to that level again, because I thought, well, if nothing's going to get me through, couldn't even sleep at night. And then my friend at the time was like begging me, because I was teaching yoga at this point, but I was always teaching rocket yoga and Ashtanga styles, and still got to sweat your tits off. Even in the lockdown, got to sweat your tits off, chasing that high. And my friend, he'd met me in the lockdown, so he'd met me like, oh, life's amazing, like, you just work smarter. Then he watched me deteriorate into this gremlin of like, oh, I'm losing my shit. And he sent me the Wim Hof video. And I would never do anything on Facebook normally. I ignore people when they send me stuff. And after 4 days of him asking me to do it, because we used to live down the road from each other, and he'd see me each day like deteriorating rapidly. And then I was like, oh, fuck it, I'll give it a go. Smoked a bit of weed. So I only used to smoke at night time, so I was scared of the munchies. So I'm very controlling, like, still. And I had this incredible body high. Like, my whole body felt like it was vibrating. So the next night I did it again, slept really well the next night. And within 3 months, I'd started this process. Unbeknown to me, I'm building this habit. And what I liked was, when I first started, it was like a 10-second breath hold. And after 3 months, I think I got up to 3 minutes 45. And I was like, this is nuts. Like, this is, and then I met this guy who was an anxiety specialist on Insta, and we connected. And he was like, you should try somatic breath work. And in this process, it was really cool. Like, it was a nice thing to try. And then we was discussing some stuff, and he was like, oh, you should try plant medicine with with the breath work. And I was like, you know what, I'll give it a go. I've been doing breath work a long time, and I tried a bit of plant medicine in, I think, the week before, but nothing had happened. I just had a good cry. Unbeknown to me, that's me shedding layers and energy, because I hadn't really cried for 5 years, if I'm honest. And did this hour breath work on these 2 cubes of this chocolate stuff. And I basically died and became a human plant. Saw everything that had happened in my life flash before me, and sort of saw it on a different plane, if that makes sense. And I guess that's kind of where it really started to shift for me. Like, there is something else. I think breath work at first with the weed was waking me up gently, and I started to question. I've always questioned things. I've never believed in like watching the news and following certain rules. Like, I'm just more obsessed with what's going on with my body and how, like, what I'm doing. And then started to meditate, and I felt like, because I never would meditate, and I taught yoga for years, I wasn't interested. But now I'd done this breath holding for so long, I was like, I bet you could sit still and listen to some stuff. So I started listening to it, and I felt like this geezer was talking to me, because he'd say something that happened in my day, and I thought, I've just picked a random meditation, and I'm like, what the fuck? So I started to look into meditation. It's like the universe's way of communicating with you. And I was like, this is a bit freaky. And then synchronicities started to happen with certain things. And I just went to a friend of mine's sound healing retreat, which I wouldn't have normally been interested in before, but another friend had invited me. And I was like, you know what, I'm open to stuff's getting weird now. I'm just sort of rolling with the punches. I'm still doing the online business, but it's starting to get a bit tough. Like, the lockdown it gave me a bit of a false economy, but I also believe that online is going to be a big part of our future. So don't give up on it too soon as well. Like, let it keep going, because it was giving me a little bit of finances to pay my mortgage. So it sort of gave me enough to cover just what I need, rather than I've always been like, I need to put this much in savings and do this and do that. And I was like, well, if I'm apparently going to get COVID and die the next day, I might as well start actually enjoying my fucking life. So went to this retreat and connected with this girl who opened a gateway for me, like, as in, like, I've always wanted to work for this particular company. She happened to be there, happened to take part in my class. She was like, oh my God, we need to connect. And then from there, this journey, like, and going to sound healings and being introduced to kirtan and all the things that I'm like, that's boring. I'm like, these are amazing. Like, so all the times that I would never have sat in these things, even if I would go to a retreat, like a yoga retreat, I'd just do the exercise part and then fuck off. And then from there, it's just continued to sort of evolve. And then last July, the shit hit the fan again. And the old me would have phoned the doctors, gone, and what had happened, because I've been microdosing at this point, I've been introduced to microdosing. And unbeknown to me, it was teaching me to handle my anxiety. And I'd had hypnotherapy as well. So I was starting to invest in myself rather than putting it all away. I was like, start actually spending some money on yourself, like, give yourself permission. And the crippling anxiety at night started to diminish. The need to take the tablet started to get less and less. And I was aware to wean myself off. Because before, when I'd done that when I was 22, I was on antidepressants and I just stopped them. So I always say to people, like, do it cautiously, like, because we've obviously stabilized on a certain level of chemical coming in our body. So if you stop that, that can totally change your perception. So I was doing this consciously, like, coming off of it, but I was journaling now, I was meditating, I was crying all the bloody time. I was crying when I was happy, I was crying when I was sad. And my mum, and luckily my mum and dad were, like, really open to sort of seeing this journey with me. And they're like, you know, are you sure this is normal to cry this much? I thought, well, fuck me, I ain't cried for 5 years. I'm either told I'm emotionally dead by everybody, or now I'm being told I'm too emotional. And eventually it started to stabilise. And I'd realised that I'd come off this medication. So when this happened last July, and I felt like my kneecaps had been taken out. So I contacted the lady that I'd microdosed with, and I said, look, can I get another bottle of this stuff? And the last one I'd done over 12 weeks. So she was like, yeah, come. She was like, come see me as well. So we hung out and had a bit of a realisation that day as well, because everything was going wrong for her. And she's normally the one that's got her shit together. And I was like, oh, we're all human. We're all just trying to do the best that we can. So I got the spray, got home, did 2 days of it, cried, felt absolutely fucking fine. Like, if I'd have gone on those medications back from the doctor, I'd have been taking them probably for a good year. And I said, fuck it. I was almost like cautious, like, can I stop spraying? Like, and I've had that bottle since last July. And every now and again, if I need, like, if something feels like it's coming up, I'll just take a tiny little spray, and then I'll do breath work and whatever. And then whatever needs to come through. And then I'm normally like, it's cleared. So then since then, really, I recognised I need to start doing some stuff for myself. So I started doing my Wounded Masculine course to sort of look at what are these habits. And when I'm journaling, I started to notice patterns were coming up. Thank God in the first lockdown, I journaled through the good times to remind me that I'd had this absolute state of bliss, because normally I only journal through the terrible times. So I was like, oh, you've been really happy, it's possible. And just started to come home to myself and dive even deeper on like the trauma work. Recognized that I also then became a workaholic on myself. So I was repeating a new like an old pattern had formed a new version. So I was like, right, you're not having fun again. So checking in, and it's just sort of rolled from there, and then putting myself out there to connect with people, because that was my intention from January, to start seeing the UK, because I've never really done that, and connecting to like-minded people like yourself. And so I saw Jake's event Illuminate, because I thought I want to move to Ibiza. So I joined an Ibiza Conscious Facebook page, and Jake had advertised something on there, and I said, oh, Manchester. I thought, fuck it. Hi mate, like interested in having a yoga teacher there. So then started to be introduced to all these different people, and then eventually got to Stone Cold Sober, where I guess I met you. So it's a lot of information, I know, but yeah, that's pretty much been my journey the last couple of years.
Wow. Wow, what an incredible journey. Yeah, and so much, I resonate with so much of that, you know. Like, yeah, working, I always had a job when I was, you know, it was always a case of, wasn't necessarily a workaholic, but you know, always worked from a young age. But the food and the gym for me was the thing. And like, do you know what it? Because I've been to rehab, and actually when I was in rehab with people who had eating disorders, you know, as an addiction. And you know, with experience in addiction, I know that it's like covering up. It's kind of pushing down and covering up, you know, the issues. So what was it for you that you were suppressing, that were pushing down? You know, do you know what that was, or is that not something you've gone into yet?
So when I was in hospital, they came down, the doctor, and he was like, "You're not going to take an overdose again, are you?" And I thought, all I have to do is say no, and he was like, "We'll sign you off." And I was like, no. In my head, I was like, fuck this. I'm going to, you know, sort this out. This is bollocks. I don't want to be here. Fuck you. And he was like, so if you say you'll sign this and you'll do some therapy, then we'll dismiss you and you can go home with your godparent. So I had to sign up, and I got a choice. And I love art. Like, I'd grown up doing lots of art. I stopped doing it for a long time because it wasn't good enough. And I chose art therapy. There was art psychotherapy. And what he would do in these sessions, and it was great, but it was also fucked up, because I feel like he opened Pandora's box and I wasn't taught how to handle it. And in the sessions, he'd give me different like crayons or clay or whatever, and then he would ask me questions, and my mind would be distracted because I'd be creating something, and then we'd review what I'd created in the session based on the questions, and he'd be like, you know, have you seen how this is related? And one thing that he did that really stuck in my mind was he got me to do a timeline. And when stuff would happen at home, I would then my eating binging would get out of control. So, for instance, when my parents went through their separation when I was 14, that's when the bulimia really kicked in. But it made me angry, because the reason I was taking diuretics and speed and laxatives, because my mum was on it. So I would be like, can I do that with you? And she'd be like, yeah, sure. So we was, you know, it was like we was almost more like sisters. And so now I'm angry. I'm like, this is why this has happened. Like, this is her fault. Like, she knew it was going on. Nobody cared enough to. Because I remember once she cleared under my bed, and because I was taking so many laxatives at this point, and they were working. There was hundreds of these packets underneath. You'd have to go to a different pharmacy each time, because they'd be like, you're not taking more. Like, so I'd be like, oh fuck, they're starting to twig. So one morning she was like, oh, I cleared under your bed. There was a lot of packets under there. You're not abusing them, are you? And I was like, no. And that was it. So it was almost like I wasn't worthy of someone even taking the time. But now I look back, she had her own shit going on. You know, they was kids having kids, and But I was very angry at my mum. Like, it was almost like this, how dare you? And my dad had become my mate. And then when I was out of therapy and everything, and I'm now one point staying with my dad, living with my dad, he had a cocaine habit. So now we was doing gear together. So we had this behaviour. So it was almost like my dad was my mate, but my mum was the enemy. And doing this therapy, it unleashed. He was teaching me to say no to people and supposedly put boundaries in. But I remember at work in the gym, this guy was like, "Oh, you need to clean the treadmills," and I was like, "Fuck you! Like, I'm not doing that. I don't want to do it." And he was like, "Who do you think you're talking to?" And I'm like, "Well, my therapist said I can put in." No, your job actually says on the contract you're here to do cleaning as well. So I had like this. I didn't know how to. I'm learning to use my voice in a way of, rather than saying yes to everyone. But now I look into it, like when my parents did split up. Before they split up, it was I was talking to this with my mum yesterday. When they'd argue, it'd be like 2, 3 in the morning. So I'd get in bed with my brother to like sort of be protective over him, because he was a lot younger and he was very socially awkward. He wouldn't speak properly. He would mumble a lot, and it was almost like I was the protector. When my dad moved out, my mum, who'd been a wallflower, became this absolute party animals. And I can see she was living her, she had us at 20, 22. So she's now drinking, partying, and it's like, you've got to look after your brother. So I always had to make sure he'd eaten, even though I didn't know how to cook. I wouldn't eat meat. So I'm cooking him chicken, thinking, I hope this is cooked. Like, I think I'm surprised he's got a good stomach, that kid, now, because of me. So it's almost like I always had to be responsible for him. And I used to be really resentful, but then feel guilty. So in the end, what would happen was all my friends would come to my house. I had a free house all the time, and we'd be partying and drinking, and there would be all sorts of madness going on in the house. And then my mum would come home and party with us. It was just, and now I look back, actually, it was a really fun time in a fucked up space. But for me, I feel like because I had to step into this parent role and I couldn't express how it was really making me feel, it was food that was really soothing me at this point. Going deeper into it, I was like, well, where did this really start? And my parents' marriage was never a love marriage, and there was always issues, even though my mum was there for us. My brother, when he was born, was a very sick, skinny child. And I feel like because he was that way, he would get a lot of attention. And where I was used to having this attention on me, him being sick, and he would be physically sick quite a lot as well. And one of my phobias is being sick. And I couldn't make myself sick. So I feel like I was seeking a way to get that attention, but never actually receiving it. And if someone did give me a bit of attention with what's going on, I was so good at concealing it. It was almost like I wanted you to see what was happening, but I didn't want to tell you. And it just kept evolving and evolving to the point where it just got totally out of control.
Wow. Yeah, it's deep. And I resonate with that as well, and it sounds like, you had a journey of learning to be having to parent yourself essentially, and your brother, and it's as hard and as difficult as it sounds, it's like perfect for where you are now, right? It's like, when I look at my history, my past, my journey includes suicide attempts as well, and so I'm definitely with you there. I know that feeling. I think if you've not been there, it's difficult to understand that. I've checked out, and but yeah, like I often say, it's one of the best things that ever happened to put me on this path. And some people disagree with that, but all right, at the time, it probably didn't feel like the best thing for those around me. But if you look at it in the bigger picture, it's like, yeah, that's not absolutely perfect for where I am. But yeah, and then so much around the gym and the food, like I was so controlling around my food, and not to a point of like almost the other way. I was just so focused on everything had to be in macros. Everything had to be probably where you got to after someone taught you about.
I was more with my attitude. The bigger the bag of foods, I like big stuff, like big boxes of cereal. Like that was when I moved to my godparents. That was a forbidden food. So you cannot eat cereal anymore, because I would sit and binge, and I'd get just to the bottom of the box, and I'd be like, well, I don't quite know how much I've eaten, so I can't quite work it out. I'll start a new box. So it was, for me, I wasn't, and thank God, I never really got into the whole calorie and stuff like that. And I wasn't, but in my mind, I was like, that was an acceptable carbohydrate, even though it's sugar and salt. Like, it's mental now I look back on it. And it was my partner at the time that I got into a relationship with. He was like, that's not a healthy carbohydrate. And I was like, but it's cereal, like Special K. They put it on, you know. And then I was like, oh yeah, why are we eating sugar and salt for breakfast? But yeah, thankfully it wasn't, mine was the bigger the quantity that I could scoff through. So I would spend £15 easily a night on chocolate and sweets and almost eat all of it, put the rest in the bin, then the next day buy fresh packs.
Right.
So that's how I would do it, because psychologically it was almost like, well, you haven't finished it, so you don't know how much you've eaten. I was in denial.
Yeah, and like I said, I've got a lot of experience with addiction, and that it's a massive part of it, that denial, you know. Like, I remember landing in rehab being like, yeah, I'm on the wrong course here. Don't bother even getting to know me, mate, because I'm going to be gone tomorrow. Like, they've just stuck me on the wrong thing, and they must have been like, oh yeah, of course you are, you know, that kind of thing. But yeah, and like I resonate so much with the drugs as well, you know, whether it be laxative or cocaine or whatever it is, you know, it was a solution at the time. It was a solution to what you were doing, and it slowly, like, we become, it takes more and more in order to get to where we feel we need to be, whether that be, you know, a laxative process. Trying to think of the word there. Or a high, you know, and that it's like those things are like a boomerang, you know. It's working and then it comes back and it just rips us to, on the way back it just rips us to shreds. It's like, it completely destroys us. But there's some things you touched on about, you know, dropping away friends. Yeah, again, really associate with that. You know, when we start changing our behaviours, especially when we start on this journey, different people drop away.
I had that shedding at 22 of friends, and I know a lot of people are sort of, when they go on this spiritual journey, they start shedding and then they get this anger. And I had all that at 22. I felt like the girls that had supposedly been my ride or dies, and it was a little bit of a clique, but I'd always been that girl that was allowed to also have different friends, because I was the friend that had the jobs. So I had older friends as well. But when this happened, like, I felt really rejected. But what was so interesting is I was working in a pub as well. So even though I was working full time in the office, I had a weekend job, Saturday, Sunday. So I didn't trust myself around food. So that's why I think I worked a lot as well. And the girls in the pub were like, most of us were laxative abusers, and we was all like proper fucked up. So I felt really at home with them a lot. And we had like 2 male members of staff and the rest were all females. And it was the least bitchiest place ever. So when I had the breakdown, and even I wasn't working in the office, the girls had me doing a couple of shifts every now and again at the pub, and I then got closer to them, and new people randomly came in. And I say to one of my best friends now, who I hated when I first met her, and she is my guardian angel, and she's taught me true unconditional love from a friendship, no judgment. And she's almost been like probably the divine feminine that I was looking for. And I was that masculine energy, and we sort of balance each other. She's stepping more. It's been mad the last year with her. And they came in at this timing where I realised that I needed to let go of these old group, because they was all getting married, having kids. And I was never really that way. I'd have boyfriends, I'd have older boyfriends and stuff, but they all dated the boys from school. And whereas I just always felt like there was something, like I went traveling a fair bit here and there, whereas a lot of them, not there's anything wrong with it, but it was just staying in that mold. All the babies have grown up together, and I tried to come back in and out when I could, but I didn't fit. And then meeting this new group from 22, and don't get me wrong, I've had sheddings in between, but I became less attached to the people that I'd grown up with. Whereas I know some people doing this journey, like one of my friends has woken up in her 50s and she's still got the same friends. And it's like, oh, I've got no one else. I'm like, yeah, but we're like really, like, do you know what I mean? So it doesn't matter what age we are. And that's why I've been really blessed, is I've got friends that are 18 or even younger, up to like 65, one of my really good friends is. So I'm really, really aware, and I can really appreciate how tough it must be for some people. But knowing that, you know, in school, we was all chucked together in an environment with people we wouldn't have necessarily chose, and brought up with people maybe our parents chose for us, but it's not necessarily our vibe. And those right people will come to you, or you'll know to reach out, because you'll just really feel like I need to connect to you. You can't, and do you know what? Sometimes we get it wrong, and it's there to teach us something that we now I can appreciate that something kind of needs healing. But then I see it as a gift. So I'm like, oh, I didn't have boundaries again, Aim, or oh, you became the people pleaser again, or oh, yeah, you manipulated there. So it's sort of it's been great. It's been fun to sort of play with it now and accept my good, my bad, and see myself through others.
And yeah, I'm finding that, you know, how my friendship group is changing, and you know, I'll say I woke up properly, um, whatever you want to label that, in 2020, and kind of, you know, I moved back to Sussex from Essex, up near you, up near where you are, and didn't really know anyone. Like, well, not I knew people, but they were still doing the same stuff that they were doing 10 years ago when I left. You know, and not saying that that's wrong or bad. It just didn't resonate with me anymore. So I didn't really have like anyone, and there was times when it was like I felt desperately lonely. You know, like I'm living with my family. They're not really into spiritual practices or in spiritual, but you know, they're great people, but they just weren't into the same things, and they just, you know. But then my tribe start turning up, and like you, they're in Manchester. Like I spent a lot of time, well, I spent a lot of time up there in 2021 with Liam, and all those guys. Yeah, like, and it's amazing how these people just drop into our awareness, drop into our space, drop into our kind of life.
Mm.
I've just been on a training course, in the Lake District, which was absolutely phenomenal, and like the people there, like it was like amazing how these people, and I was like, oh wow, you know, new people, they're on the same vibe. It's like, but if you told me 5 years ago that's what I'd be doing, I'd be like, hey, you're crackers, mate. Like, I'm not that. I'm the rugby playing, beer swilling, coke sniffing, you know, beefed up kind of individual that doesn't even, you know, that stuff I just didn't even resonate with. But it's amazing how this stuff just changes and the people in our life changes. It's just having that faith, I think, for me.
I feel because I was in the gym that I worked at before lockdown. I was there 10 years,
Mm,
and I was facing the gym. I was facing the company. Like I had my shit together. Like I teach all the classes. Because I worked so much, I wouldn't socialize. So when lockdown happened, and I started to like realize I didn't know how to socialize.
mm,
So it was, I had this whole freak out as well. So I come out of a relationship as well, and I was like, fuck, I don't even know how to date or anything. Because so it was this whole weird experience. And when I'm meeting people, like connecting not through wanting to date or anything like that, and just being drawn to people on Instagram, like, oh, do you want to hang out? Like, do you want to just being like, is this how you make friends? And like gradually, like I started to I had the best time in lockdown because all of a sudden, I'm lucky I live on my own. So I'm scared of being on my own, I thought. When lockdown happened, I was like, this is fucking amazing. I had space to do what I wanted. And if I wanted friends over or wanted to do what I wanted to do, like I had amazing times here. And I started to learn how to socialize and to be around people and be like, people actually want to get to know you. That's okay. And not be scared of these people and not trusting. I think
mm,
I've been so hurt by things in the past. And going to that retreat, Bambi's retreat, and people then reached out to me afterwards and wanted to reconnect. And I was like, wow, okay, people want to spend time with me. And it's been this whole working through this social anxiety and being okay being me and knowing if am I too intense? I love sharing things as well. So learning where boundaries are, and that was big words for me, like, and learning gratitude and also learning when to say no and when to say yes when something felt right. But yeah, for me, and I felt a lot of my friends had to move back in with their parents in lockdown. And it's Ram Dass that says, if you think you've done some healing, try living with your parents. And I was like, for me, I would sleep at my mum's once a week in the lockdown just because of the work situation. And that's where our healing started. And I thought, oh, this is what people need to do. You don't want to go back full time if you can help it. Drop in and drop out, because I was like, I think that's where we all fuck up. So I was like, God, I'm really grateful I was doing this. And I was watching a lot of my friends living with their family. And luckily for me, my family is so open-minded because they've been through divorce, they've been through drug habits, they've been through bankruptcy, they've been through internet marriages, they've, you name it, like we have been there, done that. My family have got such an interesting tapestry that I had that, oh, I'm not sure about this, and I'd be like, Dad, this sounds a bit nuts, and he's like, I don't know if you can really say that in public. So it was like we sort of had this like, is this real? Like, and eventually what I was lucky is that, apart from my brother who was in a different country, because he was like, you're losing the plot, they were very like chill with me. So I had that, whereas I could really appreciate a lot of people didn't have that connection maybe, and that's why we've needed to sort of find it elsewhere for it to come home. But I feel very balanced with what's been going on. I feel like a bridge between, it's possible to have it all.
Yeah. No, and there's a lot of healing there as well. You know, it sounds like you've gone through so much healing. And yeah, like with the friends thing, I realized that what I used to do is whoever I was dating, I'd adopt their friends, right? Because then it's like I don't need to go and like that making friends. Like I'd either adopt their friends or I'd go and join a rugby club, because when I join a rugby club, they're all there and I don't really have to do that. And I didn't know how to, because the social anxiety for me was a big thing, you know. Scared of letting people see who I truly am. Always having to wear a mask of some kind in order to feel, or feeling like I had to wear a mask at some time in order to be accepted, whether that be, you know, that was part of my gym journey. You know, I had to look a certain way I felt in order to be accepted, in order to be liked. You know, I had to be the life and soul of the party when I was out, in order to, you know, that way I was like, and that led me down some journeys through, you know, just doing stupid things. Got tattoos to prove that. Won't go into that now, but yeah, and I just I've learned since then that, and like you touched on dating as well. You know, it's like, oh, like now I just really trust. I don't do dating. You know, I trust the universe will bring the right people to me in that kind of natural way. You know, if people are into internet dating, absolutely fine. That's cool. For me, I like to have the old school way where you meet people naturally and they can get to know me as me, rather than on a profile where they swipe left or right, you know. That's kind of where I'm at now. I tried the old Tinder and all the apps, and I found it quite soul destroying. And yeah, and I just had this moment where I was like, right, that if I'm meant to be with anyone, I want to meet them naturally. I'm not putting myself out there, as in like I'm not gonna join all these apps. I'm just gonna leave it open. And yeah, like, you know, I've had a few relationships and there've been lots of lessons, which is fun. And yeah, now I'm just kind of sitting and then between them, it's like I always think before that relationship, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in a great place. I don't need anyone. And then someone comes along and it does like a new layer of me, a new layer of need or want or whatever you want to call it, and then it's like that relationship breaks down, and I have to sit there and be like, okay, now I need to learn to be on my own with this new layer, this new mask that's come off, you know. And it's like that's where I'm at now. It's like, right now I'm, you know, experiencing being, I suppose if you call it being single or being on my own for a bit. But it's just trusting that the right people come along at the right time to help me evolve. You know, when I stopped looking at a relationship as something to fulfill me, something to fill in the gaps of what I thought I needed, and started to be a way to help me have fun and evolve in life. That was a real change for me. So I definitely, yeah, there was a few things you touched on there which I get so much, and the heartache which you touched on lightly. I had a big one, and I didn't really understand what it was, or why it was happening when it happened for me. I had this breakup in 2020, and so much pain, like, and I know where you're at. That physical, I thought my heart was, yeah, like I remember lying on the sofa in my parents' lounge and just being like, literally holding my chest, like, And in my head, just saying these affirmations and stuff, just to try and get it to like, to stop hurting. And I was looking for signs everywhere. I was mad. I was like, well, if I see this number, then it's definitely, it's definitely gonna be okay. Or if I see these letters, then yeah, that means, I was going crazy. But it led me to this beautiful path. It led me to doing a lot of inner work, and I understand it now as what they refer to in the spiritual world as a twin flame experience that triggered this. It's like a catalyst for me to go on this journey and start essentially practicing all what I teach now. And so, but from that pain came a lot of beauty. So I definitely resonate with that. But yeah, I mean, I'm guessing it was pretty similar for you as well.
I mean, with the heartache, I wasn't aware of the spiritual side of things. I just thought, why my medication not working? This is ridiculous. I feel like I'm dying. I need to check out again. I can't handle this pain. This is a different type of pain. And I wasn't using food or laxatives anymore. So it was like nothing could conceal it. And the joke was, in the first lockdown, I was so happy. Like, I got down so lean naturally. I was like, wow, I've always wanted to be this way. And I've just danced my way through it, basically. And that's when the breath works. I think breath work saved my life. Like, then eventually there's synchronicities, and that's when things started to happen. But something that you touched on there, like in a relationship where you join to other people's friends, and this is what I've sort of been studying with my course lately. And I recognized that where my brother was very socially awkward growing up, he became my responsibility. And even though I was fucked up, I still had I was a very sociable person, even though I didn't realize I was. And my friends embodied him. So he became one of the boys and one of the girls. They sort of helped him come out of his shell. Like, before my dad moved out, my brother wouldn't speak properly. And then my mum was like, the day your dad moved out, he started saying sentences. They thought he was like going to be a failure and blah, blah, blah. He's a mechanical engineer now. He's a G. And now I look back, we had this codependency. So I was the saver, and he was the person sort of feeding off me. And I've recognized, particularly lately, when I look back at a lot of my relationships, I become the saver, and they're my friends, even though I wasn't sociable. But because I was the student events manager in the gym, everyone had grabbed, and my partner at the time, he was managing the gym. So even though he'd been there for years before me, he'd kept himself to himself. So all my people that I was connecting to, he became part of that collection. So when we broke up, I was like, nobody needs to choose, but he felt very like, I've got nobody. And then I recognise this is a pattern that I do when people come into my life. They're almost more introverted. And there's me like, oh yeah, like come to now, especially with this sort of stuff, like, yeah, oh my God, like come to this event or do this and do this. And again, I'm sort of providing this sort of network when it's like, what is the right thing to do in a dynamic? Because when I look at my parents, that's exactly what my dad did with my mum. She was socially awkward, my mum, and eventually she connected to everyone and she found her own way. And it just really resonated when you said that. And then with the whole, when I was coming out of this heartache, and then this person, now I appreciate it's a twin flame, and doing that mad plant medicine trip, I didn't know what twin flame even was then, and to see it all flash behind us and see us going off to a different level and being together in a different universe, I was like, oh, we're together in a different universe, how weird. And again, still not knowing what a twin flame was then, and that's when things started to, like, the penny started to drop for me, which is what he always used to say, I'm waiting for the penny to drop for you. I didn't get it, and I couldn't receive. This is what the painful lesson was. I was unable to receive that love because I didn't love myself. And I think I joined, I was like, right, fuck it, I'm going to try this online dating everyone does. Cause I've been in a relationship for 4 years with him, 6 years with my last partner. And then again, people just come into my life and I just fall into these relationships. I was like, fuck, like, how do you meet people if you maybe do want? And I was going into this panic mode of, I'm 35, I'm, if I don't, and I didn't really want to be a mum, but I didn't know what I wanted. So I had all this weird societal pressure. I think I did 2 online dates, had the most horrendous time where these men felt like they could just grab me. Like, one guy, we were sitting in a bar and he just stuck his tongue down my throat. And I was like, am I a prude? Like, I couldn't work out if I'm now frigid, And I was like, oh, I think you're meant to have the connection. So I felt really violated. I remember saying to my friend, she's like, just do it. It's a great way. And I said, no. Now I look back on it, like, my mum got really manipulated. She met someone off the internet and was married within 3 months, and that was a horrendous experience for her. Horrendous. And we can joke about it now, but she lost everything. And this person didn't know this person. So I was like, I just feel like I need to be on my own for a while. And I had this epiphany, and I was like, if I don't love myself, how can anyone else love me? And even if they do love me, I push them away anyway because I reject myself. I was like, I think I'm going to try and keep myself to myself for about a year. And I sort of made this little pact with myself, and people would sort of come along and I'd be like, that's cool. And I sort of didn't feel like I had to give my power away or be like, oh, I need a little bit of attention. I did slip up in September, and something happened with someone, and then I just felt like, no, it's not what I want. So it just affirmed to me, it's not what I want right now. And I was like, I've still got healing work to kind of do. And then, yeah, when you're not sort of looking for it, then someone else comes in, and then you sort of sit with it. And what's been cool, the last experience I've been in has been like, it's almost a bit clinical, but we sort of sit down and talk about it and experience it, and we're like, neither of us actually know what we want. So until we kind of get clear on what we want as well, but none of us don't really know ourselves enough to know what we want. So it's now doing that work on ourselves, but not being too heavy with it. Because I got to that point where I was like, oh, they did this and it triggered me like this, and like, that must be a trauma from here. So now I'm like I'm like, I need to chill the fuck out with what that is as well, and actually learn to dance with it and not put pressure on it. And same as you, I really feel whatever is meant to be is going to be. Whoever's meant to come into my life, we're going to grow from. And I see every person I have a relationship now with, even if it's just one conversation, it's growth, whether it's emotional growth, spiritual growth, physical growth. And for me, the biggest thing has been communication. None of us really say how we feel.
Yeah.
So to open that chakra and to learn to listen as well has been part of that journey.
Yeah, definitely. And I was, so much resonance. And I get it so much as well for the industry that you're working in opening up. I was talking to someone last night about being a personal trainer or being in that industry and always having to put a front on and always having to be a certain way. And so I really affirm you for like stepping through that. It must have been a difficult journey to do that, but I resonate so much with that whole, like, we can only love someone as deeply as we love ourselves. You can only meet someone as deeply as we love ourselves. And and these people that we meet are just, for me, these people we meet are just a mirror of us. The whole twin flame experience, for people who don't know, it's all about balancing. It's all about balancing the masculine and feminine within us. If anyone wants to know more, drop me a message or drop Amy a message, and I'm sure one of us can help you with that. Because it can be, if you're in it, it can be quite intense. In fact, just talking about it can be quite intense. So please reach out if you need to. But it's that balancing and just learning. And I know you've got a podcast which is awesome, and it's all around that self-love, and that for me has been a massive journey. Most of everything that I've been through in my life, and especially in this last year for me has been hard, has been lessons in self-love, lessons in how can I meet myself, and whether that be self-love as in giving myself a nice bath and doing something like that for myself, or implementing discipline, practices, breath work. I like the way you touched on breath work, and you said breath work saved your life. Like, this year I went through some stages where I was re-feeling all the feelings that I had suppressed around my suicide attempts back in 2018. And obviously back then, my way of dealing with that was to first of all suppress it and then check out. All right, and I've not dealt with that since then, and all the reasons why I decided to check out. And after the first eclipse in May, me being double tourist, and there's an eclipse in Taurus, it's like, oh yeah, you're gonna feel this one. And you know, I was leveled for about a week, with but feeling it, really feeling it. And the thing I picked up to get me through it was breath work. For me, it was Uddiyana Bandhas. You know, generating, similar to the Wim Hof, like generating that inner fire, burning through the lower or the more dense emotions, and then releasing them. You know, releasing them to something. You know, alchemizing them into something greater. And that was a game changer for me. So I get where you're coming from. That was, you know, that was so powerful. So I literally spent a week. So I spent a week feeling the feelings, and then I spent the rest of the time getting myself out of that state. You know, because there was something in me that told me I had to actually feel these this time. You know, I had to experience and because for me they get stored in the body, but to feel them was releasing them, which was
well, this is my first year off antidepressants and anxiety meds, so I'm feeling every feeling. I'm like, fuck, this is what it's hard. Thank God I have tools now. I have breath work, I have meditation, I have tapping, I can lay on the floor, I have, you know, I've got this whole bank of things. And now what I realised, the other month, June's a heavy month for me and February's a heavy month, but I've had a lot of traumas happen, particularly in those months. I was like, all the stuff that you probably never really felt because you'd go straight to the doctors. I'm having panic attacks. I mean, when this happened with me and my husband at the gym and we was working together, I would take a pill, go and teach body pump, come back downstairs, take another pill, go on the gym floor, train my clients, take another pill. So this for me is like all these repressed, and I thought these are just the ones I can remember consciously. So fuck knows what's in my DNA and in me from a child and in me from my teens. So we're feeling, plus we've got the collective conscious and unconscious where other people are waking up and they're going through their grieving process. You're like, well, this was a big month for me, and most of my lot of mirrors, it's probably big months for them. And it's like everything's coming at you left, right, and centre. But thank God for breath work. Thank God for yoga and all the things, the disciplines. Self-love. Self-love for me has been like getting real as well and being like, right, is this a bullshit story? Are you putting yourself back in victim mode here? So I give myself some real talk. I talk to myself a lot of people come to me and they're like, Amy, I just need a bit of Amy advice. Can be very cutthroat. So I just started talking to myself as I would, but not in a way that's like, oh, you're an idiot, you've fucked up again. Because I was like, oh, that's no good, because that's putting me back into shame. So when it comes up, I'm like, okay, well, yeah, you did have a binge. We can reset from today or tomorrow, but what was underneath that? You know, and how could we, I know you want to go for a run now and punish yourself, but what's going to regulate you? I'm actually quite tired. Maybe you should go and have a nap.
Yeah.
So it's like I said, reparenting that process. And one thing that the online has done for me, even though it's not financially doing what I thought it must do this, because I went back into this, I must succeed and success means loads of money. Like I went into this mad sort of thing and I'm like, well, you're failing. And I was like, well, actually, if you need to have a nap in the day now, like this trauma course I'm doing, I slept 6 to 8 p.m. the other night because I felt fucked after he'd done this lecture, and I was like, well, that was really deep. I can have a bath in the afternoon. I lived in this property for 3 years till the lockdown. I've never even gone for a walk around here. It's beautiful. When lockdown happened, I was like, wow, I'm in the village. I've never used my bath. Now I'm like Mrs. Bath Queen, and I was like, oh my God, so you've got all these amazing things that can regulate you, give yourself time and attention, because none of us were giving ourselves time or space or attention.
Yeah, and it's so powerful, like just listening to your journey today and meeting you. I met you at Stone Cold Sober Festival, where we were both holding space and just loving that. I mean, that festival was next level. And then I got involved with Illuminate weekend before last as well. They're a great group of people. I held a cacao ceremony for them. So and it is just but these are, like, I see it in you. These are your gifts. These are your gifts to the world, you know, having to go through everything you've gone through, like you said, feeling everything you're feeling in order to lead the way, in order to help, you know, to show people how it can be done, to be able to give advice and coaching or mentoring or whatever it is from a place of truth, from a place of experience. You know, that's where I am. You know, it's like if someone comes to me and they share their journey, the likelihood is I've been there or lower, and it's like, yeah, I know where you're at. You know, and I can meet them where they're at and be like, yeah, you know, I definitely resonate with that. So what's the offering? You know, what is it you bring into this world? I mean, I know, but share with the audience what it is Amy does.
When lockdown happened, I created this online. I thought, well, you know what? I've always created timetables. That was my job, student events manager, and putting everyone's timetables together. And I'd manage all these freelancers. And I thought, well, how would I like to train each day exactly how I want to? And I'd done my yoga teacher training like a few years before, and I was like, I really want to do more yoga. So when I created this little online schedule, I was like, well, 30 minutes I would like to do per class. Fuck this hour business. It was always burning me out. But people like variety, and I like variety. It's what kept me, and I teach so many different disciplines. So I created this schedule that was 10 to 11 a.m. and then I'd do like evening 7 to 8 p.m. and I'd do like a 30-minute. I was like, you know what? Every day can be yoga then. It's your timetable if you want to do that. So I did 30 minutes of yoga in the day, and then I'd pick like a fitness class afterwards. So it'd be like, I don't know, 30 minutes power yoga with 30 minutes aerobics, 30 minutes power yoga with weights. And in the evenings, I was like, oh, people like slow stuff. I wasn't keen on that stuff back then. And put it on the timetable. So I thought maybe you'll like it. And over time, I started to fall in love with this schedule. And I was like, you've got too much high impact stuff in there. And I started looking at barefoot training. And so now it's more of a holistic approach. So there's classes that involve, I teach people how to massage themselves doing fascia release now, because I was sick of having injuries. Like touch wood, I've sorted everything out, learning how to use these little balls that cost £3.50. And I can teach people online how to do it. And it's been profound for the people that are doing it. I've ditched like the HIIT classes. I've ditched all the high impact stuff. Everything's now a form of yoga, and then also a functional fitness class, maybe a strength class using body weight, but manipulating it with breath work. So I'm creating these whole disciplines. And then I got really heavily into the moon in the lockdown as well. Before this, wasn't interested. And then I started doing these every 2 weeks, these moons kept coming along and seeming to dictate things. So I started doing weekly, like every 2 weeks, workshops around the moon. So I do like a full moon and a new moon. I started doing bringing journaling practice into it. So it's almost become like a bit of everything. So I've got like a journaling group as part of their subscription. They get their moon workshops in there, and then they get their holistic classes. At the moment though, it's a challenge. It's finding those that want to show up for themselves, and then not letting my ego go, oh, if someone can't commit, it's not you, Amy. It's not their time. But the beauty of it is, whatever I'm building at the moment is I record everything. So if people miss a class in the gym, tough shit, like you've missed that slot. So they can do it on catch up. And what I've realised is I used to have a lot of shame around not sure if I want to be a mum or not and what I want to do. But I was like, you've got the time that a lot of people haven't got. And it's like my brother said, you give us the highlights. You give us the bits that, because I'm obsessed, like I love learning. And he was like, you give us the bits that you've took in. So now I'm started like last week's focus, because we'd had the full moon in Capricorn, which is all about karmic cycles and closing what you began in January. So the whole week last week was around karmic bonds, karmic cycles, soul contracts, and interweaving that even with the fitness classes and the yoga. Like when we do the Kundalini practice, like, you know, where has this behavior come from? Have we learned it from a parent? Can we accept it's not ours to carry anymore? So it's just playing with all this sort of stuff at the moment. And I've got such an amazing little tribe that they let me sort of do whatever comes in, and then they'll message me and be like, oh, that really helped. I hadn't thought of something like that. So I'm just trusting whatever I'm studying at the moment just feeds through, and whoever's meant to hear it, like you said, will receive it and then record it, and eventually it will go wherever it's meant to. And then I love the podcast. I have to admit, I love doing the podcasts.
Yeah.
And the vision eventually is just to go around, filming and recording and doing podcasts and connecting with people and putting little videos up, and people can do the yogas. And so at the moment, the plan is there is no plan. And whoever wants to join me on this journey while I'm still in it at the moment, because part of me feels like I'm going to be possibly traveling soon, so I might not be able to keep that structure of the class the way it was. But at the moment, I know that I'm showing up most days. I'm very loyal in that sense, and just rolling with the punches and trusting that the next stage isn't planned anymore.
Yeah,
It's
that
just
unknown.
the unknown. Miss Virgo, I need to have all my finances in check and have my tax bill paid in advance. She's fucked off, and this chick's like, right, you are here just to do your studies, teach some classes at the moment, do little workshops, collaborate if I want to. And I've got into this phase of, because I only just stopped working weekends very like in since December, still doing Saturday, Sundays. I was like, you're even doing that online still? It's a bit nuts. And if something comes up at the weekend, I want to go and work at Illuminate or Jake's, I have the choice, and whoever's meant to meet me will. And trusting that just because we make these connections now doesn't mean we have to take action on them right now as well. I've got a whole lifetime. So what the offering is just get in touch. I'll probably have something, and like I say to people, there's loads of free stuff on my YouTube as well, so you can try me beforehand, and just seeing whatever unfolds.
And I love how you're just doing that intuitively. It's that's that world we're stepping into. It's like we don't always need that. It's like, right, this is how intuitive. But for everyone listening, I will be dropping all of Amy's links below on, I think they're below on YouTube. They'll be either above or below. I can't remember what platform.
That's above, that's below.
Yeah. But all the links will be there. Yes, and thank you, Amy. Thank you for everything you've shared today, for being vulnerable, for being open, for being honest, for everything you're doing. Like, you touched on fun. You bring fun. You definitely bring fun. And that's something like someone like me, I can get serious and I need that fun. And like you, I love doing these podcasts, just getting to know people and helping people share what they're doing. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. If anyone has anything to ask either myself or Amy about anything we talked about today, please feel free to get in touch. I was about to say obliged then. Not obliged. Feel free to get in touch and get involved. We're always here to help. That's generally why for people like me and Amy, it's why we're on this journey, right? Is to help people. So it'd be great to hear from you. And if anyone likes this podcast, please like it or comment. It really helps. Subscribe to the channel if you're on YouTube or if you're on any other platform. It's all great, and there's loads more to come. I've got loads more guests lined up, which I'm really excited. All different kinds in all different aspects. So thank you so much to Amy. Thank you so much to everyone for listening, for watching, for tuning in. So grateful, and I hope everyone has an absolutely amazing day, whatever day it is when you're listening to this, an amazing life. And we'll see you on the next episode of Bear Chats. So from me, the humble bear, it's goodbye, and from the lovely Amy,
see you later.
Thank you.